This is an oral history interview conducted for the Witness to War Serving a Nation project at Nauset Regional High School on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. For the sake of this interview, please state your full name and community in which you now reside.
Michael Paul Conniff, and I live here in Orleans, Massachusetts.
Thank you. Could you describe your childhood?
I grew up in a place called Mansfield, Massachusetts, which is south of Boston. I was born in Jamaica Plains, and we lived in Roxbury, and we moved from Roxbury to Mansfield. My dad was a cop in my hometown. He later became a state cop. He was a World War II vet.
What did you like to do growing up?
I was involved with the JCs.
Could you explain what that is?
Junior Achievement Chapter. It's for kids between 12 and 20.
Okay.
And I was with the Boy Scouts too.
How was school?
Good. I went to grade school in Mansfield, Robinson Middle School, and Mansfield Middle School, and then went to high school at a trade school called Southeastern Regional.
What did you do after you graduated?
Went into the Army.
So why did you enlist?
I volunteered because my brother had went in and my dad was in.
How did it feel to say goodbye to your loved ones?
Well, it was, for me, it was, at the time, it was a changing experience, different. My kids didn't come till like years later, and, they were in the service with me, so most of the kids were under me, so.
What was boot camp like?
It was different, it wasn't what I expected. It was a life-changing experience.
Could you describe a typical day?
Wake up 5 o'clock, sometimes 4:30. Running, marching, training, learning about infantry.
What was the food?
On the range? The food was just your normal stuff.
Okay. What was your uniform like?
We were in Class A's as a dress uniform. We had OD greens, which were our work uniform, and of course combat infantry boots.
How did it feel when you first put it on?
Different, yeah, different. Everything was new.
So what happened when you were first deployed?
My first deployment was to a place called Kaiserslautern, Germany, and it was our job was to back up the Berlin Wall.
How did your expectations of war compare to the reality?
I didn't see any war until I got out of the Army and went into the Navy, and for me it was I was trained as an aviation ordnanceman in the Navy. I left the Army as an infantryman and went into the Navy. So I did 4 years in the Army, then went into the Navy. And when I got through my specialized training, AOU, which is specialized for aviation warfare and aviation ordnance, then I volunteered for EOD. I ended up going to school in a place called Beirut, southern Lebanon. And my first experience with any kind of action was with the 24th MEU in 1983. And we first got there, there was an explosion at the Marine, I think at the embassy where the Marines were. And then we had built barracks in southern Lebanon. We were part of a multinational force, peacekeeping, we were a national peacekeeping force, United Nations. So we're under a restriction. We had to follow cards, which basically they told us what we could and what we could not do. And but in October '83, the barracks bombing happened. So I was there for that, and 243 of my friends got killed. So that was the beginning of my Navy service.
So how did you feel when?
You know, it didn't affect me till many, many years later, like 20 some odd years later.
So describe the relationships you made.
Oh yeah, lifelong relationships. Most of the guys I still know that I served with.
So you keep in touch?
Oh yeah, I keep in touch, yeah.
Describe a typical day deployed.
Underway, you were training to deploy, which was had to do with flight ops, had to do with we would train as aviation ordnancemen. We would work on storing and arming and disarming weapons. I did specialized training, so we were in charge of nukes and offloading and unloading nukes. And then when we deployed, I volunteered to get off the flight deck. I deployed as an EOD. I volunteered for that. So I ended up going to school for that, explosive ordnance disposal. And we would fly off on the CH-53s to the landing zones. For this particular one, I was there for this, for Desert Shield and Desert Storm.
What's a CH-53?
That's a helicopter.
Okay.
So we would fly out to the field and prepare the landing zone, or LZ,
All right.
and clear mines. And
so why did you decide to join the Navy?
I wanted education. I wanted some more. I wanted to see, you know, in the Army I wasn't seeing anything. I was staying in one place. When they redeployed me to stateside from Kaiserslautern, I wanted to stay in Germany. They didn't want me to. Plus they wanted me to train. So I kind of escaped from the Army.
How is the Army different from the Navy?
They were both pretty much, you know, one was more, I moved around more in the Navy. Mm-hmm. I was aboard ship. My base was my ship. I was on 6 ships in the Navy, whereas I was at a base in the Army. Most of my ships were carriers. 3 of them were carriers, in fact. USS Constellation, USS Saratoga, USS John F. Kennedy, which are all steamers, which is they're run by 1,200-pound boilers. I wasn't on any nuke ships. Most of the Nimitz classes are nukes, and I wasn't on. I was on the older class that were built in the 50s.
So, what was life like when you were on the boat?
You always had to be, you know, you always had to listen to certain alarms, certain things would indicate what was going on. If there was a general quarters, you had to run to your general quarters station. Mine was a 50 cal. And when we deployed, like I said, I was out in the field, so.
What does 50?
50 caliber submachine gun.
Oh.
Yeah.
What did you do for fun when you were?
We would go to different places. We would pull on the port in different countries, see different things. I love Spain, and I loved Italy. So, but I've been around all over the place.
How did you stay in touch with friends and family?
Usually when we pulled into port, you know, we could, you know, say some things we couldn't say.
What did you miss at home while you were in the military?
I think the freedom to just, you know, do what you don't have the same freedoms in the service. On board ships, you're restricted.
Describe your favorite moment from the war.
I think probably leaving.
What did that feel like?
Relief.
Describe your least favorite moment.
Probably when some of my friends got either hurt or killed.
And that was in the...
That was in I had 1, 2, 3, 4 different campaigns. So, my third time, I think, an Iraqi freedom, and then this particular war, we were around a lot of, deceased, But I think the first time, the first one was the first time in the field when the barracks blew up. That was kind of tough. I was at the college across the street, so for me it was like it was more bitter than anything else.
What was the scariest moment you endured?
Being chased with somebody that was trying to kill me, or being looking for somebody who was either was with a unit that was shooting at us, just spooking, what we call search and destroy.
What was the most life-changing experience?
I think the most life-changing experience for me would have been learning about other people's, the way they lived and the way leaving stateside and, coming home and learning that, things here aren't always as, ruled, Being an American, you experience a lot of freedoms that you can appreciate more, I think, if you volunteer, I guess, or serve.
Yeah, so you went to Beirut, you said?
My first LZ was Beirut, yeah.
So what was it like there?
At that time, we thought, well, when we left to go there in '83, they didn't have computers. You're using they had encyclopedias. So we looked up in encyclopedia what it was we were going. We were going to go to school while we were waiting for a ship. And we were part of the Navy. But we were attached to the Marine Expeditionary Unit, 24th MEU. And our job was was to pull watches there at the base. So everything was okay until the time when they blew up we weren't expecting. That was unexpected.
So when you were in school, what were you studying?
We were learning about antennas. We were learning about electronics and how our equipment, how they interfaced. We were learning about how to use our equipment, and we were learning basic, things about computers, things about electronics, to better ourselves and to, so we can increase our rank. And in the military, you go to school to get your rank.
So you said you were in E9?
Mm-hmm.
And could you explain what that means?
You go from E1 to E9, enlisted. E means enlisted. So I was enlisted.
Okay. So how did you?
I would take. You had to take exams. You had to take a test. So, yeah. So I graduated. When I left the military, it was on. Because I was hurt, so I left with a permanent and total. They call it PDRL, Permanent Disabled Retirement List. So
could you?
I get paid through the VA. The VA, the Veterans Administration, pays my pension. I'm a wounded warrior.
Injury.
My right lung chemical exposure at the Gulf War, from the Gulf War. Gulf War syndrome.
Could you explain that?
Gulf War is it affected like my pancreas, it affected my right lung. I had cancer.
When did you feel proudest?
Probably when I came home and we were welcomed home. Unlike the Vietnam vets who weren't, my older brother and some of my older friends that were in Vietnam, they really weren't welcomed home, and they were treated badly by the government.
Could you describe a vivid memory?
My vivid memories now are usually flashbacks, and I wouldn't really probably they are vivid. I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, so it scares me and it scares my dogs.
Yeah. Could you tell us what that's like?
I take medication for it, and sometimes it doesn't work. But seeing your friend who's not here anymore, and Howie, and coming to you, in a flashback, that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I do suffer with PTSD, and I do get compensated, but it's not enough, and it never will be enough, But I didn't know, what I didn't know.
What would you say to yourself before, if you could talk to yourself before you went?
Stay in school.
Yeah.
Stay in school, and if you want to serve, be a politician. Because they seem to get away with everything.
What skills learned in the military do you still use today?
Oh, outdoor stuff. Yeah.
So like?
Camping out. Survival.
So how did you readjust after the war?
I don't think I ever did, really. I don't think I ever readjusted. I'm still, dealing with it.
Yeah.
But I go for help. I see a psychologist, see a psychiatrist, I do the next right thing.
Can you explain more about, what PTSD feels like?
It would be difficult for me to explain to you, but hypervigilance. I don't know if you have any idea what that is.
Yeah.
I get hypervigilant over stuff, with the PTSD, I sometimes space out. I'll be back and I'll get a smell on my nose, and it'll remind me of something that happened to me when I was in the field, and I'll have a flashback.
Is there anything else specific that triggers it?
Noises, loud noises, unexpected, I don't know, being put in a situation that reminds me of, unknowingly reminds me. I'm sometimes not aware of it, so.
Do your dogs help you cope with it?
Yeah. They're yeah. Yeah, I've been through a lot of relationships and marriages, and they seem to be the only thing that really,
So what were your responsibilities as an E9 in the Navy?
I had a division under me.
So about how many people would
Yeah,
that be?
in the Navy, that's about 150 people at least, if not more.
So you answered to...
I answered to my division officer.
Okay. And what were the kinds of things that you would, like...
Have to do?
Yeah.
I would have to direct, check on work, make sure things are done right. You know.
Like, so what kind of things would you be checking on?
Supervisor, like for, I don't know, say if I had to, I don't know, maintenance check on equipment, or fill out a directive, fill out a worksheet, you know, to give to a chief to you know, give a directive, or check on say we were in the field and we needed to we had a directive to clear out a portion of the field that was, you know, needed to be cleared. I'd have to go ahead and set up a directive, what we call a directive, or work plan.
So, which did you prefer, the Navy or the Army?
I like both of them. Yeah, there are things about the Army I liked, but I got to like the Navy. The Navy was different than the Army. Probably more military in the Navy than in the Army.
Could you explain, like, the process of, like, going on a mission or, like, a campaign? What does that happen?
Deployment? Okay, you'd have to do a workup. I remember I was with a construction battalion, and I was sent, I just got through doing AOU, which is Specialized Weapon Training, and they sent me to a minesweeper. Well, some of the personnel were part-timers, they were reservists, so we had to train them to work on equipment and, you know, do workup. We'd have to work up before we deployed, which is making sure that general quarters were done in a certain time. Everybody had their GQ. Some did medical, some did shipboard stuff. Some people, you know, depending on what ship, that particular ship was a minesweeper, so our job was work on mine equipment, detect, identify, and destroy mines. On a carrier, my job was to deploy to the field, mostly fly off, fly back on.
Did you ever want to be more than an E9?
Yeah, I think if I had to do it over again, I would have stayed in school and probably learned how to fly. But by the time I did decide what I wanted to do, I was kind of too old. I didn't know what I didn't know at 17. Yeah.
What would you have done with your life if you hadn't joined the military?
Probably would have been a musician.
What instrument?
I played drums and a guitar. That's just little kid stuff. That's what I would have done if I had stayed in school, probably. Went to music school. I probably went to music school. Maybe I still will, I don't know.
Could you describe the process after you were injured for coming home?
I ended up at Portsmouth Naval Hospital, which is in Virginia, and triage first. I went to triage. Came home, they removed shrapnel, was sewn up, stayed there and then was shipped home. Put on temporary TDRL, temporary disabled retired list. And then they permanently retired me. Permanent disabled retired list. That's what I'm on right now, PDRL.
So how did you feel when you were first put on that list?
I wanted to stay in and they didn't want me to. So, I mean, it would be hard for me to explain it to you. If they wanted me back tomorrow, I will leave. I would do it. Yeah. If they needed me tomorrow, I would do it again.
So did your family meet you when you were changed?
Well, I was at that point I was divorced. I mean, I really didn't have. I had my mom, but she's elderly. She was elderly at the time. My mom's in her 90s. So. My dad's deceased, passed away.
What do you miss most about the military?
Probably the cohesiveness. You know, there's parts of the military that I trusted my brothers and sisters in arms, whereas out here it's just.
What do you not miss?
What do I not miss? I know I liked it all. I mean, I got to like it all, so probably not the part of working to get to the point where you would deploy workups. Because you have to meet certain parameters. You'd have to work up before you would deploy, and you'd have to score and, making the mark. Everybody had to do their part.
What do you regret?
What do I regret? There's so many things. Hindsight's 20/20. I don't know if you guys know what that means, but no. It's like you look back on your life and you go, "Oh yeah, I can see I would have done this, but I didn't." So you can see what you should have done and regret it. But the thing to do is not regret your past and live day to day, take a day at a time. That's what I do now.
What advice would you give if a grandchild came to you and said they were interested in joining the military?
I'd have to give them my best advice and let them choose their direction. Because they have to find out for themselves, like I did.
Yeah. You said that you kept in touch with your friends
from
the military. Do you see them often?
As much as I can. Some of them are not here. They're some are in Chicago, some are in California, some are overseas still, some are still in. So I do touch bases with some people. I was one of my ships was built in the name of a friend who got killed that I served with, and I keep in touch with his family, and so yeah.
Does keeping in touch with these people help with your PTSD?
Oh yeah, it does, yeah, because they gave all, where I gave, but I didn't give, a lot of my friends, more than just 100 and more than 100 guys, way more, a lot of guys, there's a lot of pictures in my head, and a lot of people, a lot of things happen, but it was for the good of, if you want to serve, you want to be, serve your country. I think it's like anything else. It's like going into the, I don't know, special services, I guess, or what else can, anything you volunteer for, for the benefit of the country. One of our presidents said, "Don't, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." What's always, that was a big thing when I was a kid. Service. A lot of my friends went to Vietnam and died. A lot of my friends died that I served with, and so it means a lot to me, my country. And I don't see, I think you have to do service to appreciate it. You can't really. It's hard for me to explain it to you. You have to experience it. You're defending the Constitution. Yeah. Foreign and domestic.
So how did you arrive on Cape Cod?
I always kept the base here, like 30 years ago.
Oh, the one up in
Yeah.
Ventura?
Well, I would either be living there or, but I kept a home here, a home base here on the Cape. I moved out here like 30 years ago. But when I retired, I had 2 properties in Florida. But since then, I sold and bought a house here. But I've been up here on the Cape for a long time, off and on when I was in the military. But my home base was here on the Cape.
All right. Well, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.